And I think it's just about time now to turn it over to Doreen Reedman, huh?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you so much, Barb, for your help today as our greeter. We really appreciate that. And welcome to everyone today for joining us. I'm so happy to have you with us today. And maybe you're caring for a loved one or helping someone else downsize their things and move into a smaller place. Or maybe you're just trying to get your closets in order. Whatever it might be, I think you're going to learn a lot today from our speaker today, Jennifer Erickson. But before we get started, we have a quick poll here that it's an anonymous poll, and we'd like to know what you'd really most like to get tips on. So tell us, is it decluttering? Is it downsizing for yourself or downsizing for someone else? I know I've helped my parents with that in the past. Or maybe it's just getting organized. So tell us what you think on that poll. And for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, you won't see the poll, but for those here on Zoom with us today, you will definitely be able to answer that poll at your leisure. So anyway, many of us have probably had parents who've moved to smaller homes over the years, and we've tried to downsize and help them with that. And, as caregivers for others, that gets to be a big job. And as you know, AARP works a lot with family caregivers. So we think this program too will give tips to some of us who may be in that generation of helping other ones with this task as well. So we hope that you will get a lot of tips out of it. And again, thanks to Barb Handy Marcello for being our greeter today. We really appreciate it. And if any of you are interested in ever helping us with these online events, we'd love to have you join our volunteer team. You can let us know. Just shoot us an email at aarpnd@aarp.org, and we'd love to hear from you. So we have one more quick poll. We're going to check this one out now. Tell us what part of your home feels most cluttered or disorganized? And this is a multiple choice. So I know in my case, it might be more than one or two. So anyway, feel free. And this is a no judgment zone here too. So we just kind of want to get a sense, and Jennifer wants to get a sense of, exactly what you're kind of looking for here today. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Erickson. Jennifer, please unmute yourself and join me. And great to have you here. It is a pleasure to have you with us today for this program. And could you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into being a professional organizer? I love it.
Sure, I'm happy to. Thanks so much for having me, Doreen, and I'm excited to be here with everyone today. My background, I've been in association management for the last 15 years, working for a home builders association in Fargo-Moorhead, and then a commercial construction organization. And while I loved that and loved working with people, I found it wasn't completely my passion. And so when I was looking and trying to think through what do I like to do? I like to work with people and help people. And then it was, what am I good at? And I love organizing and helping people create the systems that help them be successful. And found the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, and was able to do a lot of learning to help just me focus on how do I help others. But it's been one of those things that I love helping people move. I've moved a lot growing up, so it was just kind of a natural fit. And I can honestly say I love organizing. I love going through my closet and getting rid of things. And that's not true of everyone. So we have to have those people that help, because I truly do think an outside voice helps us not be so sentimental or ask questions about why are we keeping things, that can help us through sometimes an emotional time of decluttering or helping people downsize or going through our belongings. So yeah, it's been a fun journey so far. Great. And I'm happy to share with you guys here today too.
Okay, well, that is awesome. I love it. And I have to be in the right mood, but I do love organizing when I'm in the right mood too. So before we get started, we're going to take a look at those poll results and just see what people told us here today, Jennifer. Here is the first one. What area do we most like to get tips on? Decluttering, downsizing for yourself. Okay. some for another person and organize. Okay, awesome. Decluttering is really a popular one too. That's awesome. Okay,
that's
how
good
about
to
the other
know.
one, Lyle? Lyle is in the back on the poll, so thank you very much, Lyle. What part of your home feels most cluttered or disorganized? Basement, storage area. Ooh, I agree. Yeah. Garage and closets are coming in at 29%. Office, everything is also pretty up there. But anyway, it seems like kitchens and drawers are seeming to be pretty organized for people. So they got that under control. But I am going to, it's so great to see those responses. Thank you all for your sharing that with me. So I'm going to get in the background here and let you take it away, Jennifer, and we'll be back later and do some Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Doreen. And I'll start sharing my screen here.
Perfect.
Well, thank you guys again, everyone, for having me. As I said, I am a member of the National Association of Productivity Organizing Professionals, and I've done some special certifications for life transitions, which could mean going off to college, but could mean downsizing or helping a loved one. And then residential organizing, just because that is more of where I like to organize as well. But to Doreen's description, and just wanting to reiterate, it's so great to hear what you guys are needing information on and where you need help for, because that will help me as we're going along. So why does this happen? And you guys have already said your garage feels cluttered, your basement and storage areas, and our closets. And as we're going through this presentation, I want you to think of, why does that frustrate you? Is it that you can't find the things that you want to find? Is it that there's no more space in those areas? Is it, maybe it's you're storing things for other people and that's taking up space? Think through, why does it frustrate you, so that you have a reason why you're decluttering, why you're going through things, why you're needing to declutter and get rid of some things in your home. And then what do you want to do about it? Do you want to get rid of things? Do you want to give things away? And we'll talk through, since downsizing was part of that, thinking through what we're holding on to give to other people. And just in that time of our lives where, I have parents who are downsizing, and my grandparents, as they are moving into assisted living, or, how are they managing the things that they're holding on to hand down to people, or to give to people when they pass. Just thinking through that as well, because sometimes we hold on to items that people don't actually want. So these are good questions for you guys to think about, to get out of this presentation what you need. So why clutter happens? Obviously, just the time that we're in our homes, it is really easy to amass things. And we think of how long we are in our homes. Even if it's just a little while, we find places to store items. And the longer you're in a home, the more clutter that happens, just because it's easy to forget that you have something, or it has its storage place, so you don't necessarily think of it that much. I think of my house, this is the longest I've lived anywhere, for 12 years now. And yeah, it's amazing how many things you can fit in a closet or under the stairs area. So time absolutely has an impact on that. And so I want you to also not think that decluttering will happen overnight as well. We're going to talk through, some of the step-by-steps that I recommend, and that we're not trying to get this done in a weekend, because like Doreen mentioned, you have to be in the right frame of mind, and you also need to have some time, because you really do need to touch everything and go through everything. Space is also a reason why clutter happens. Thinking through, we have lots of storage spaces that we can put things in. If basements and storage areas are the places of most concern, if you have great places to store things, it's easy to put them there and kind of forget about them until next time you have to go into that storage space. I think of, my home, where I have always wanted the ledge in the basement, and when I was able to buy my home and it had that. I was like, yay, why do I want that ledge? Because it's really nice to put stuff on it. So when we have space, we tend to fill that space with things. Sentiment. This is a really big reason why I feel clutter happens, even for myself when I have something that someone gave me, like even if it's a clothing item, sometimes it's hard to get rid of those items because we have feelings of, why did that person give it to me? Or, what was that relationship? So we'll talk through some of those items as we're going through parts of the house on how to evaluate that sentiment and decide, is it worth keeping, or is it something that you can let go that you don't necessarily, it doesn't remind you of that person as much. And then just general busyness. I see this a lot for people too. Life is going all the time, and it's really easy for clutter to happen because of the just general busy lives that we hold. When you think of mail, what is your process for mail? And do you let it pile up over a week, or do you open it every day? That same kind of clutter can happen with everything that we bring into our house. Are you the type of person that puts things away right away? Or do you let things kind of build up on a counter or a table or someplace and then put them away at the end of the week? What is your process at? And I think of that for systems. I've worked with clients, who have a trouble opening the mail. They bring it in and then it gets all put around in the house in different places. So working to have one place to put it all and then choose one day a week to open it. But it's things like that to think about of, how do you operate, and do you create clutter, or is it something where you can maybe think of working through it so it's not creating that clutter that might be frustrating you or stressing you out? So all good things to think about why clutter might be happening to you too, so that as you declutter, you can hopefully keep it to a place where it's not bugging you, not causing you stress. So what to do? We're going to talk through this through different spaces, especially that basement and storage area that you guys are concerned about, garages, closets. I'm going to touch on kitchens and the living areas too, just to give people ideas with the clutter that happens there. But I want you to think about it in small bites. And I was reading your AARP article that Doreen will be sharing too, that's on your website. And it talks about that too. It can be really overwhelming because we have clutter everywhere. We have stuff every place. We have some place to put it. And so you don't want to think about it as the whole house or the larger project, because that just is really overwhelming. So I want you to think about one room at a time. If it's the basement or storage area, maybe even a section at a time or a specific category. And I can talk about that here later. And then realize that it absolutely is going to make a mess to start. I think of, even going through my closet, kind of have to take everything out to go through it. And the same is true of a lot of different parts of our homes that we need to kind of make a mess before we can put things back together. And then touch everything. It's really important that you look at things, go through things. And I know oftentimes in offices especially, it's like, oh, that file folder, that's fine. I don't need to actually look through that. Well, going through all the papers and finding, I might have kept notes from something that I really don't still need to keep, or in the storage spaces, is there a set of lights, Christmas lights, that no longer work? What are those types of things? So touching everything, thinking through it, and making a decision on whether to keep or get rid of those items in your home. I do see a question that I do just want to not address, but know that it's there. It's about any info on who might be interested in Melody in Motion Christmas figures to sell by. Good question. I am not sure of the answer to that. I will see if I can look up some possible options on organizations that might take some of those figurines. I see Lyle Halverson would like to answer this question live. So Lyle, go ahead if you've got an answer.
I
All
think
right.
he was just, I think he was just clicking it off. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Yes, so we'll look up an answer for some of those things to maybe try to sell or get rid of. Okay, so just starting, I know this wasn't a place that many people were too worried about. It sounded like many people were fairly organized. I do want to just touch on some things because I know that it's an easy place for clutter to happen because we live so much in our kitchens. So thinking through for what you guys have in your kitchen cupboards, those are really great places to find space for kitchen utensils, tools, dishes and plates, and going through those periodically to rotate out the things that you no longer use, the cooking tools that you maybe purchase specifically or have a lot of. Do you need to keep them? One of the best things that I remember my grandmother doing was going through her kitchen when I was in college, and she had a bunch of utensils that she was no longer using that she let me have for my college kitchen. And it was fabulous. I didn't have to go out and buy utensils. I could utilize something from my grandma, and she was able to then downsize her kitchen and not have so many things in her drawer. So it's something I like to do periodically because I bring in new utensils or have my favorite spatula and then I'm not using the other ones. So, going through those regularly. Coffee cups is a big one for me that I have quite a few of them. But again, going through periodically, which ones, again, hold sentimental value for you and which ones maybe can you get rid of. I had some from my childhood that I had the set of 4 of them, realized I didn't need to keep all 4 of the cups. I just kept one of the design that I liked, and that was enough to have that, sentimental. I like to use this coffee cup periodically. And then even pantry items, making sure you're going through your pantry and rotating out things that are close to the expiration date or throwing things that are close to expiration date so that you don't have that taking up your space. And then overall functionality, I want you to think about the specific dishes you might have in your kitchen. Did you buy something for one specific purpose and no longer need it? There are so many specialized cake pans nowadays that you might have made a special cake, but do you still need that pan? And I have done some reading and heard some suggestions on sometimes libraries have lending libraries for baking utensils, and even being able to ask your friends and family, do you have something special, instead of keeping it all in your own kitchen, can help you limit the amount of tools and specialized baking pans that you have. And I know I've done this too. I used to be a really big baker and doing things very specialized, and then I've gotten away from that, and so decided to not necessarily keep those tools when I'm not using them regularly. Someone else can, and then I can ask for them in my group if I need and decide I want to cook something of that nature. See a couple of other questions, so we'll get to those, I believe, towards the end, just because there's some very specific questions there. So we'll get some of those answered for sure. Now, bedrooms and closets. Closets was one of those top items that feel cluttered. Again, a good place to store things, a good place that is meant to store things, but we often put a lot of things in our closets that aren't necessarily even meant to go in our closet if it's for ourselves. So I want you to think through when you're decluttering. This can be one of the hardest places because we often have outfits or clothes that we do like, but maybe don't wear regularly. So I really do recommend pulling out all of your clothes out of your closets, and it could be in chunks, depending on if you like it by season or if you have special categories or just a chunk at a time, to go through those clothes. And I'm going to talk specifically about clothes, and then we can talk about other things in our closets here too. But going through each item, looking at them, trying them on to see, do you like how they fit still? Are they still in style? I've done that before, where I've kept something that I really like, and then I go to put it on and I'm like, oh, I don't really like how this fits, or the fit doesn't work quite well with how the style is right now. And so purging those items, pulling those items out and donating them or selling them, depending on how much time you want to spend on rotating those clothes out, can go a long way to keeping your closets from feeling overwhelming. I always think of that, why holding on to items. Again, did someone give you a piece of clothing? Are you keeping it for a very specific type of event? Did you wear it with a very specific outfit? Why might you be holding on to a piece of clothing, especially? And then one of the things I saw in your article too that I like is that one item in, one item out. And I definitely try to utilize that method. If I'm bringing new clothes into my closet, I do need to pull things out because I only have so much space. And a long time ago, I had changed to those felted hangers, and I kept just buying new hangers when I would buy new clothes. And I decided at one point, like, nope, no more. I can't buy any new hangers. This is the amount of hangers I have. So if I start to run out of hangers, that means I need to start getting clothes out of my closet that I'm no longer wearing. I would also challenge everyone with clothing to think about where you're at in your life. So when you change jobs, you might need a different outfit. You might need different clothing to wear. Think of one of my previous jobs, we were wearing the logo wear, where you had, the company's logo on it, like the shirt Doreen is wearing today. Those are great because we can wear those for work. But then we might have other clothes that we used to wear for work that no longer make sense, or we're no longer wearing. So think through, what's your lifestyle right now? Why are you holding on to some of those other clothes? And can you rotate them out and donate them so someone else can be using them? I think of that with dress clothes as well. Do I have some special dress clothes that I like to wear to weddings or things to funerals or other events? And then do I tend to go buy something new for those events instead? So once you've worn something, if it was meant for just that occasion, feel free to donate it or try to resell it. I think those are okay to do if you're buying something very special for one event. Then other parts of closets are storage closets. And so with the storage closets, those are really great places to put things, store things, find a spot for them, throw it in and close that door quick so it stays in. And they do very often need to be gone through because we do find, we cram things in them, we find space for them. So I'm gonna kind of go into that basement storage area, just storage areas discussion right now. I want you to think about, what is the purpose of that closet? What is it holding? And going through that, taking everything out of the closet and going through it all. So this is a good thing to think about. If closets and storage areas are your biggest frustration, your biggest piece of stress, I would tackle like one closet at a time and not more than one a day. I would even say, like if you have a spare bedroom closet, do that in a weekend, but don't try to push it too hard, just because we often discover things that might take a while to go through. And that's really where I want you to open those boxes, open tubs, make sure you're taking things out and looking at them and determining, what is the use? Do I really think I might need this within the next 6 months to 1 year? Can someone else use it? And why might I be holding on to it? I think of things like, I really love Halloween. And so I have costumes in my spare bedroom closet. I'm not going to get rid of too many of those, but periodically I probably should, because maybe I don't fit them anymore. Maybe I won't ever wear them. Maybe other people in my life won't wear them. Do I really need to have a costume closet? I'm almost 40 years old. Do I need to keep those things around? but so good things to think through and pull out periodically to see. And then other items to think about in closets, and something that even my parents and my grandparents I've seen too, is that the variety of closets where they're at. In my grandparents' house, there was one closet downstairs in the basement that had some kitchen utensils and containers. It had some memorabilia from when my grandparents were younger. It had some decoration items. And so it was really important as we were going through that we opened everything up and took everything out, because it was not very evident of what those things were. And this is where I will say, I would encourage everyone to go through these things yourselves and pare down your own items rather than waiting for your children or your grandchildren to do those things, because they might not know what items are or what the history is of those things. And one of the things that my grandmother did before she passed is she had a notebook that explained some of the items in her jewelry box and some of their hutches, because we had never had conversations about some of them. So I didn't know the history of a ring that she had in her jewelry box. To me, it was just a ring. But when you heard that her father gave it to her for her 18th birthday, and so then you understand why it was special, and then it can help make it special for other people. So that's just a tip I have for going through things and making sure you are documenting if things are important to you and for the rest of your family. And then other items to think through in closets. I have a utility type closet, again, going through those things regularly for duplicate tools, duplicate items that are saved, cleaning. I'm trying to think of what else is in my utility closet, but it just, again, gets so cluttered that it's easy to forget what's in there. Where are the cords to cleaning tools, vacuums? Where are the cords to any of the decorations that you might have? Are you no longer using any of those things, or are there things shoved to the back that can be pulled out, thrown away, or gotten rid of? I see a question, I think, that is a great one on understanding and dealing with when one spouse is a saver and a keeper and one is not. That, that's a really good question and often happens. And I think it's important to have conversations about, especially if there are things that are frustrating you about however that other spouse is. If they're the ones that like to save everything and you're the one who likes to get rid of things periodically, is kind of having that regular discussion, a balance of why are we keeping this? What is the potential purpose for it? What might we use it for in the future? And making sure you have some of those just conversations and not just let the frustration build if clutter is building, or if that person wants to purge everything. Because items and the things that we surround ourselves with do give us comfort. And so we want to have that balance with each other. I know that's not a silver bullet or anything, but I definitely would just recommend having conversations, maybe having some specific areas where they can keep items that maybe you don't have to live in or have to deal with. But I do think working with each other to regularly go through things and understand that they might need to keep things. And that goes to thinking about how do you operate? So clutter happens too because some people need to see items to be able to know that they need to deal with them. I think about the mail. Sometimes, you need to keep it out so I know it exists and I need to do something with it. Other people can put it away and know that that still needs to be taken care of. I know it exists. I know it's there. I don't need to see it. And so understanding how each person operates in a family, in a household, is important too, because maybe one person needs to see the items, needs to have them out to deal with, and maybe one person wants them put away. And so having like a set requests that, hey, this has been out for a week. Can you deal with it within a week? Because then it starts to build up and I see it all the time. And then there's the people who can, items are out and they can ignore them. They start to disappear into the woodwork. They disappear into the landscape. Whereas there are other people who see it all the time and it bugs them all the time. So again, I think having conversations, finding that balance of how do you put things away, deal with things, asking them to set a time frame to deal with those items can help lessen the frustration and lessen the conflict, hopefully. And then a few other things for storage areas and basements. I've got, I think, garages next and living spaces, but this is a good thing for even basements. What are you storing? And like thinking through your decorations, and that, that's a big area. I feel like for basements and storage areas are things like Christmas decorations. Do we have those all organized? Are those taking up a lot of space? Going through those things even periodically to determine what do I like to put out? What am I not using anymore? And then sentiment items. This, I think, for basements and storage areas, and even those that we put out, if we're storing things in tubs or boxes in our storage areas, they're not out. We're not enjoying them. They're not being enjoyed. And so when you are going through those areas, opening those boxes, going through items, if you really want to keep something, I would encourage you to find some way to display it, some place that you can see it all the time so it can give you that joy, help you remember that why that item makes you remember someone or gives you those good thoughts and feelings. And so thinking through, I had a tub in a closet that had a lot of the items from when I was very little. And, some of them I remembered, some of them I didn't. I just had been keeping all my life. I remember looking at them in high school and being like, okay, that was a little thing my great grandmother made me. And I've just held on to that. Eventually I was, why am I holding on to this thing that doesn't actually have any meaning really to me besides being told that my great grandmother made it for me? And while it's nice, after talking to my mom about it, my parents about it, they were like, we don't care if you keep it or not. I was able to let it go because it was only like just taking up space. It wasn't actually reminding me of my great grandmother or sparking any joy out of that item. So thinking through especially if you're storing it in some place that you don't see regularly, why are you keeping it? Why is it important to be in a tub in your garage, in your storage area? I think of that too. My parents have just retired and they're on their way to downsizing again. They downsized when my sister and I were out of college, and then they're downsizing yet again. And my mom found a couple of totes of my sister's and my Barbie dolls, baby dolls, other toys from when we were children. So they moved those toys when we were out of college, adults. We didn't want to have them in our spaces, but they kept them and moved them with them to this new house. And they'd been sitting in this garage for 15 years. So finally my mom was like, I'm not keeping these any longer. You guys get to decide what you're doing with these. So my sister and I went through them all, and it was that first instinct of like, well, these are my favorite Barbie dolls. I remember playing with these. I loved these Barbie dolls. I need to keep them. To the realization that they've been living in a tub for more than 20 years, probably, closer to 25 because of when we stopped playing with them, not bringing anyone joy. And besides just our memories, which still live in our heads, we don't need that Barbie to spark that memory for us. So it was a lot easier than I expected to say, let's give these toys to people who would like to use them. And I don't know if you guys have grandkids or young children, but if you've seen Toy Story 3, I think it is, where the toys need to be with people who enjoy them. My sister said that. I've seen Toy Story 3. These toys need to be being enjoyed rather than in a tub in a garage. And so thinking through that too, are you storing things that aren't even yours? And why are you holding on to those things? Can you send those off to other people to, if they're their memories, if they're their things, for them to enjoy as well? Just looking real quick at a question on arranging items in areas and bins to utilize, thinking through your storage areas. My recommendation are finding tools that work for you. We have so many options nowadays. I personally like clear tubs so I can see what's in them very easily, especially for things like Christmas decorations, Halloween decorations, anything that you are storing, and then finding things that are the same size so they stack easily together. I'll talk about garages too, but if you're thinking through storing like items together, like tools or things that you need to access really quickly, those clear tubs and totes can really help you find things easily, or even label things too as you need. And then arranging items, what I try to work with people on for storage areas is what makes sense for you. How do you need to access things? How do you work? Because we want things to be easy to find, and we want you to store them where you use them, or make sure you're able to access what makes sense where it makes sense, and not storing something that you need to use upstairs, way downstairs in the basement. So thinking through that too, of where are you keeping things and where does it make the most sense for you to store those items. Hopefully that answers that question. I'm happy to dig into those a little bit more as well. So continuing to talk about garages and storage spaces, I talked a little bit about the tools and equipment, and something that I've noticed with my grandfather and my dad, and then a couple of clients, is that sometimes that you don't know if you have an item, you're not sure, or you can't find it, and so you go out and buy another one. And so I think keeping things as well organized as possible, having spaces for dedicated spaces. This is where it is, or I'm using it. And I saw that on your AARP article as well. It either lives here or I'm using it currently. Will help you know how to put your hands on something. And then how long has it been since you last used it? I think of this for storage spaces, garages, shops. My grandfather was a big, he had a shop downstairs in his basement. He had so many hobbies. He used to do those motorized airplanes, hobby airplanes. He'd done metalwork, woodwork. Well, he hadn't worked on the airplanes for a very long time, but he still had a bench in an area that was full of the tools and equipment to work on those items. I get some of that. You want to keep it because maybe you'll be interested in it again. But when it gets to be 10 years, 15 years longer, it's definitely time to think about letting those things go, letting someone else enjoy them and utilize them. I put this on here specifically for the garage and storage space after a conversation with my dad in his garage about boxes of magazines that he has had since before I was born. He loves reading magazines. He loves keeping articles from those magazines for reference, for knowledge. And he has kept and moved those magazines multiple times. And we've talked to him about pulling the articles out. He even mentioned that he should probably pare them down because he has many boxes of them in his garage and home. But it's one of those things to think through. How long have you been storing that? How long has it been since you looked in that box? And if you haven't looked in a box for as long as you've been in a house, you may not even need to go through it. That might be something you just donate or throw away, depending on what might be in it. But that might be something you just let go because you haven't thought of it or tried to get into it and access it for that long. My parents have lived in their current house for 15 years. And there are some boxes they said that they moved there that they haven't looked at. So that's one of those things that they are starting to just get rid of. And my mom often used a move as a means to purge because we moved fairly regularly when I was younger. And so that was an easy place and time to say, I'm not moving this, we're getting rid of it. But when that hasn't happened, again, that time goes on, we forget about things. It's easy for them to stack up. So hopefully that has helped give you some ideas of storage spaces. If there's other questions there, I'm happy to ask or answer them. And I still have a few questions I do want to answer, but I do just want to circle back to the, what to do. Thinking through, what are you storing? Are you storing other people's things or what could be other people's things? And thinking twice about that was one of the things Doreen and I were talking about earlier, that when a parent downsizes, they have items that they're maybe not wanting to keep, but they want to keep in the family. Are you keeping and storing those items for a while? Do you want them? Making sure you think through that before you take things. And then also, sometimes it is easier to say, yes, I'll take this, and then just donate it yourself and not actually keep it. One of the things I've learned from my own experiences with my family members is letting your loved ones take what they want, need now, instead of waiting until I die for you to get this item that you've loved or enjoyed. Something that we learned with my grandmother, they have a lot of things displayed and I have attachments to some of them. And as they were aging, they're no longer enjoying them. They're just in that display case. And so what a better way for my grandmother to know that I was taking the item that she had meant for me to have and enjoying it while she was still alive, rather than waiting to inherit it once she passed away. And so thinking through that too, as I mentioned earlier about my grandma writing down what items were and what they meant, that has really helped us go through those items and understand that sentimentality. And that was one of those things with the figurines and items that people collect. We need to make sure we are aware of their value. What are we collecting them for? And what do we intend to do with them? My grandpa passed away earlier this year, and he and my grandmother had a bunch of the Hummel dolls that they had gotten as an investment. Well, they were in a cabinet, none of us wanted them. They're not something I had any sentimentality about because I wasn't allowed to play with them or really look at them or interact with them. But what we found is going to an auction house in Chicago that, we got less than $500 for the entire collection of them too. So that's something to think through, when you're looking at valuing old coins, valuing anything, is to find professionals who are specifically in that type of industry. I think of the antique malls and places in our areas. They have auction companies that can come in and do some of that valuation that can help you find the market for what that item is, because that's really important. If that market doesn't exist for the item that we've been collecting, then it's not worth anything. So it's really important. We can do some research to find some of those specific places here in our North Dakota community, but I would recommend some of the antique like malls. We have one in Moorhead, Minnesota, that's been where I've gone to when I've had things that I thought were potentially antiques, but to find those people with that knowledge and also where to find that market. Oftentimes estate auctions, estate companies can help you do that. They can help you find that market, that valuation process, but it is somewhat specific to the item. So I think it would be important to do some digging there. So I can try to find some additional resources for some of those specific items as well. I see a good, not a question, but a good one. If you can't part with magazine articles, you can scan the important ones in and store them on your computer. I think that is a great one, especially with woodworking articles. My mom has a scanner. She could do that for my dad. So yeah, it's so much. And now too, we can often look those articles up online. If they were from the 1970s or not, we can find that stuff a lot easier than flipping through a magazine from 1979. So thank you for that question. Yeah, independent value of antiques. In all of our communities, especially the bigger communities in North Dakota, there should be estate companies that help you value those items, that can help you find someone that might be interested in purchasing those things. So that is an important resource, I think, to utilize. And then, I would start even with Google and finding, who and where might sell some things. Like I said, that Hummel collection, we actually went to a company in Chicago when my grandparents were from the Twin Cities area. And then the financial affairs of the deceased, that is a really good question. I believe that it honestly is until their entire estate has been dealt with, for lack of a better term. That can take years. And then it's also important to keep some of those things based on legal guidance and financial planner guidance. So I would check with any of those professionals as well on what you might need to keep, depending on what, especially with financial affairs, those in general need to be kept for 7 years, but some of that depends on what is going on with those financial services. The question about services that will photograph, list, and sell and ship your stuff on eBay. There are items and places. I know there's one in Fargo. It's, I believe, Used a Bit Pawn and Sales. They have a storefront on Main Avenue in Fargo. They also have an eBay service that they provide. And I would imagine that there's something in the Bismarck area as well. And I knew that Used a Bit Pawn and Sales did the eBay pieces. And I just Googled, eBay marketer in Fargo and found them. And so that is where I would recommend starting. And I can work with Doreen to find some of those resources for you guys too and provide them later. But that is a good point to think through, is what are your items, and not just wanting to donate some of those things. I had a client that out of the Detroit Lakes and Minnesota area worked with an estate company prior to passing away, but worked with an estate planning and auctioning company that came in and could help value and sell those items. So some of those companies will do that regardless of, you don't have to wait until you're doing something after someone passes away for those kinds of items. And I agree, it's valuing your own time. That's where, is it worth you trying to sell something on your own or working with someone to do it? And so we can work to find some of those resources for you as well. And then I do just want you to think through, again, why are you holding on to an item? I've done this with some of the things that I received from grandparents or great grandparents, as I mentioned. But why was I keeping it? Was it just because I was told it was important to me at one time? Is it important to me now? I had some dolls that my grandmother had given to me when I was very little that were in boxes, again in a tub, and not something that made me remember her. So those were easy for me to eventually say, okay, I don't need to keep these. I don't need to store these in my home. Somebody else hopefully can find them and enjoy them. And then to that point of you need to determine, is it worth your time to figure out how to sell them? Or is it just something to donate and let someone find that treasure to them wherever you might be donating it to? And there are lots of great places to donate items, thinking through even furniture and some of those items, that there's lots of great organizations that are helping people find housing, get housing that can utilize furniture all the time. And those are things to think about for downsizing as well. So any other questions that you guys have?
Oh, this has been great, Jennifer.
Good.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's so much information and it's hard, but I swear I just start little, pull things out, go through and touch things, except for those boxes that you haven't touched for 10 years, then just get rid of them.
Okay, well, we do have another question here too, Jennifer. And if you want to put up your contact information too, that way if
Sure.
people want to contact you directly, they can. The question from Kathy in West Fargo, what do you look for to determine that a collector could be venturing into hoarding?
Yeah, that's, and hoarding is definitely a mental illness, I would say, and something that needs help professionally. But it is something I think of it, especially for my own personal collections that I have. If I'm not able to display them, see them regularly, that might start to become too much. If I have a collection, I collect perfume bottles and I have a nice display of them where I can have them all out. If there's something that you want to rotate, fine, that, great. But I think if it's starting to encroach on your storage space, you're not able to display and see your collections, then maybe it's time to either get help dealing with that issue, or purge the items that don't mean the most to you and again don't spark some of that joy. Going back, if you've ever read Marie Kondo and some of her thoughts, or that, does it spark joy? Does it bring you good memories? And I think of that for collections as well. And then why are you collecting things? Do you enjoy them, or are you collecting them to hopefully be an investment someday? Make sure you are aware of if that will bring you in money.
Interesting. Very good. We've got a couple more questions too. Somebody's asking, what was the name of the eBay company you used in Fargo?
It is connected with Used a Bit Pawn. Let me see if I can Google it real quick.
Yeah, and then while you're doing that, I'm also going to share the book that you recommended.
Yes.
The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. And
Yes.
I have heard of that before, and I'm going to put it in the chat for everyone right now, so that you can also see what Jennifer is recommending as another book recommendation that might be good for.
Yes, and she's a funny author, and with all of the books, I always take some of their recommendations with a grain of salt. Obviously, everything's not right for every person, but it just gives you some good ideas. But the Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning was a good, again, thinking through what are you leaving the people behind to clean up? What do you want them to see or not see? And then just how much stuff we often have and leave behind. But yeah, it's a very good book, very easy read, entertaining. She's a lady of between 80 and 100, she describes herself as. So.
Oh, wow. I have heard of it. Yeah, very cool.
Yep, Used a Bit, Sales and Pawn. They have an eBay auction platform up on the top of their website.
Okay,
so
very good.
usedabit.com.
Okay. And then back to any suggestions on the melody and motion figures. Maybe that's something that we can, get to. This is an anonymous attendee that's asking, so I don't know how we put it in, so they'd have to leave us their name in the chat or something like that. Or they can contact you directly at your email.
Yes, absolutely. Feel free. I will see if I can find and get the name of the company that my aunt and uncle used for my grandparents' Hummel figures. Maybe that's a company that can help with this as well. I know sometimes there's ways you can value them online too, but again, you have to have that market. Someone has to be interested in buying that. And things change so quickly nowadays on what's in style, what people like. And so definitely think of that as you're collecting things or want to sell items for any amount of money. Melody in motion.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I see some in
Very good. And I sent that person your email, so
Oh, perfect.
they'll
Great.
have that. So, and then Chuck is asking, it makes sense that you initially have to make a mess, which yeah, it does get to be a
Yes.
huge mess.
Yes.
Any thoughts on how you manage the mess, like how you divvy it
Sure.
up? That's a really good question, Chuck. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a very good question. And I really like in your AARP article, they talk about making piles of the keep, maybe pile, and then a donate or throw away pile, and just starting that way. And again, start small, have some space where you can have those piles where like, I know I'm keeping this, I'm putting this back, I'm not getting rid of it. And then the easy like throw away if there's trash or items that you know are really ready to go. Having, I like to use those clear plastic trash bags for donate items. So again, you can kind of see what's in them. And then black plastic bags for trash. So again, we know it's trash, you know it's just thrown away. And having those ready to go when you're going through. So you're just putting like donate items right in that bag, and then trash items as well. And then when you're going through the maybes, that's again easier for you to say, why am I keeping this? And can it go into a keep? Or now that it's been out and I've touched it a few times, is it easy to just give away and donate or sell and do whatever might make the most sense for you. So yeah, having somewhat of a system as you're going through things makes it a lot easier. And then yeah, if it's easy to say yes or no, then that's great, but there's always those maybes in there.
Oh gosh, well, this has been just awesome, just so helpful. I mean, I'm that person with the Barbie dolls downstairs, and I've also got like all my son's Legos and Thomas the Tank Engine toys and all that kind of stuff. Kind of sentimental. Also have a couple sets of china, one from my husband's parents and one from my own parents. So I mean, I've got a lot of things I got to come to grips with here, or let go of, in other words.
Yes. And that was one of those, like when my grandparents were getting rid of some things, they're of course giving it to try to give it out to people. And I'm like, well, I do like those plates. I don't need to keep the whole set. So I kept 4 of them. And you know, winding some of those things in. And I did keep one My Little Pony that was like my first. I'm like, I can't get rid of this one, but one. So yes, I would say, yeah. What does your son want? His Legos or Thomas the Tank Engines, possible Grinch? And it is that, do we want to keep some of those things?
Right, for possible grandchildren someday.
Exactly, exactly.
This has been just awesome. Jennifer, it was so great to connect with you again. We've known each other for a long time, and it was really fun to be with you today and hear your good ideas and give us some inspiration for getting organized, getting downsized if we need to do that, and just simply decluttering around our homes once in a while, because it feels so much better and it brings us more joy. Yeah,
exactly. Less stressful. And then those items that you love, you can see and enjoy. And and we're getting into that good time of year for doing that, because it's not as nice outside.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to Barb Handy Marcello for being our greeter today. Thanks to Josh and Lyle and Wendy for being behind the scenes and helping with everything in the background. And again, thank you for joining us for this decluttering, downsizing, and organizing program, part of the Passport to Healthy Living program for 2021.